Specific to budgeting, this is what we would offer. And this goes back to some of those areas I just talked about. Be clear that there's an overall vision for education. Assessing the environment. What are the community circumstances? What are the upward pressures in the current fiscal year? And I will mention, it's the only specific I'm going to mention tonight. Actually, I might mention two. Healthcare costs. I don't know if you've all seen the recent communication from VHI, but it looks like healthcare costs are going to be, healthcare premiums are going to increase somewhere 10 to 15% this next year. Extraordinary impact on budgets, and will create tremendous pressure on all of our boards. Obviously, the potential impact of federal sequestration, I think is the right word. If that doesn't get fixed, which I think it probably will, simply because everything's affected, including defense. But if it doesn't, substantial decrease in federal money available to our schools. So there's a lot of things out there that we're going to have to keep paying attention to. But certainly the board's job, as they're establishing parameters, is to pay attention to what's going on in the broader environment. That whole thing about being clear on priorities and being clear on absolutes. There are boards that say, if all else goes, we're going to preserve X, Y, and Z. If those things are true of a board, if a board has those kind of strong beliefs, it's very important in establishing parameters for the budgeting process that everybody be clear on what those absolutes are and what those priorities are. And then it really is most helpful if a board is clear about the outside. I sort of mixed my words here, terms here. The outside parameters of the bottom line. In other words, it is very helpful for a board to say, we think our taxpayers can tolerate an increase of X, Y, or Z, given what's happening with our student population, given what's happening to the economy. So the establishment of parameters is critical for a board. That is important board work. The second important board work is engaging the community. Opportunities to hear from the community, multiple perspectives. I always am interested in watching the description of the meetings that occur in different communities, and there are times, as you know, when all the parents will be there, and there's other times when there's sort of there's a major focus on taxpayer capacity, and boards cannot respond to everybody equally, but it is important to hear all those multiple perspectives. It's important to inform the community about current realities and considerations. As I've already explained about this healthcare piece, it will be important people understand that, and you are translators and educators for the community. Help the community stay focused on overall student learning and not on local politics or individual family situations. Your job is to make sure that the whole thing works well for students. And there will be people that will come and say, I like my child's first grade teacher. I'm concerned with the budget you've got that teacher may be laid off. That may be a legitimate issue to hear and to consider, but obviously boards have to be always thinking broadly. And then obviously the whole town meeting piece, which we're not going to focus on tonight. And the last thing about the role of the board is assuring a healthy budget building process with your educational leaders. And this is really the piece that gets into role of board versus role of administrators. You've established the parameters that I talked about. You've been in touch with your community. You understand what your community's priorities are. It's important that you expect the administration to develop a budget that meets those parameters. It's really important that board members not feel that they are the ones that are going to get out the pencil and the sharp-pointed pencil and draft up a budget in terms of what every line item is going to look like. It's critical that that be the work of your administrators, with them understanding what the parameters are. It's important to expect a healthy back and forth discussion between the board and your administrators to sort out board desires and parameters and the realities of operation. We've had a couple of situations in the last year where boards lay out their parameters, and the administration came back with a plan that was within the parameters. The board didn't particularly like the results, and it got very tense and difficult, even in the newspapers, the disagreement. And when in fact that should all be, there should be a healthy back and forth in terms of, if we don't like the impact of living within those parameters, then there are several choices. But that needs to be a healthy conversation back and forth. We strongly urge boards to avoid micromanaging line items, expect administrators to meet your parameters, and develop proposals that will get the best return on dollars invested. The more detailed decisions that individual board members push and boards make, the less responsibility and accountability there is for an administrator, because in fact budgeting decisions and whether you're going to hire an administrative assistant or a receptionist may seem like a small thing, but it could be a big deal, and it could make a difference between whether the job can get done well or not. And it's important that administrators be guiding those kinds of discussions, and that boards resist the micromanaging as long as the parameters are being, obviously the parameters have to be met. And finally, the superintendent and board must be able to both be comfortable enough with the final proposal to present and defend to the community. So it has to be a joint document that people agree on at the end of the day.